At first light, a lone figure stepped onto an empty field, his sword steady, his breath calm. By sunrise, the duel was over, and a legend had begun. This was Miyamoto Musashi, a warrior who did not simply win battles. He redefined the meaning of mastery in a world where life and death balanced on the edge of a blade. His name endures because he proved that discipline could cut deeper than steel, strategy could outlive violence, and the mind could become a sharper weapon than any sword. Musashi's life matters because it shows what happens when a human being commits fully, ruthlessly, to growth. He was not born extraordinary. He built himself through relentless confrontation, with opponents, with the world, and most importantly, with his own limitations. In an era torn by conflict, when powerful clans rose and fell overnight, Musashi chose to walk alone, studying the patterns of human behavior, refining technique into philosophy, and transforming survival into art. What makes his story irresistible is not the count of his victories, but the evolution behind them. Every duel became a study, every mistake a pivot, every near-death moment a recalibration of mind and strategy. By the time he laid his sword aside to write his teachings, Musashi had become more than a warrior. He had become a blueprint for self-mastery. His journey invites a question that still grips modern readers. How did one man turn chaos into clarity, violence into wisdom, and a lifetime of wandering into one of the most influential legacies in Japanese history? This is the world of Miyamoto Musashi. Sharp, disciplined, uncompromising. And it begins with a single step onto a silent field where mastery first announced itself. Miyamoto Musashi's early life unfolded in a Japan defined by unrest, shifting loyalties, and the constant crackle of conflict. Born in 1584 in Harima Province, he entered the world at a time when the sword was not merely a weapon. It was the currency of survival, honor, and identity. His childhood environment was shaped by turbulence long before he learned to wield a blade. Musashi's father, Shinmen Munasai, was a respected martial artist known for his skill with the jite and short sword. Their home was not a peaceful household with gentle mentorship. It was a demanding forge where discipline overshadowed warmth. Training was not an activity, but an expectation, and the young boy absorbed its intensity long before he understood its purpose. From the beginning, Musashi was marked by a fierce temperament. Stories of his youth describe a child who struggled to fit the mold of obedient tradition. He was bold, confrontational, and restless, traits that clashed with the structured world his father tried to impose. Yet, those same traits hinted at the raw steel within him. When he was still very young, his parents separated, and he was sent to live with relatives in a nearby village. That shift created a rupture that would shape him deeply. Without a stable paternal presence, Musashi developed an unusual emotional independence. He learned early that authority was inconsistent, protection was unreliable, and the only constant was his own resolve. The landscape around him also carried its own psychological weight. The late Sengoku period was a crucible of warlords and shifting power. Villages were caught between armies, and uncertainty hung over every household. Musashi grew up watching men come and go, samurai pledged to lords one season and wandering the next. Honor was a fleeting commodity. Loyalty changed with political tides. In such a world, the boy absorbed a lesson with exceptional clarity. To endure, one must depend on inner strength, not external stability. Musashi's early exposure to martial arts was not the polished training associated with refined dojos. It was visceral, direct, and stripped of ceremony. He practiced basic strikes, grapples, and weapons handling with an intensity uncommon for his age. His body hardened quickly, his instincts sharpened. Yet it was his mind that developed most profoundly. He watched the world carefully. How people moved, how they hesitated, how fear changed their decisions. This observational discipline would later become the core of his strategic thinking. One pivotal psychological moment emerged when he encountered sickness during childhood. He was bedridden for a period, forced into stillness in a life otherwise shaped by physical action. That confinement sharpened his willpower. He developed a habit of internal reflection, turning inward, analyzing himself, and confronting his fears without distraction. Though young, he began forming the roots of the self-mastery that later defined his teachings. By the time Musashi reached his early teens, the structure of his identity had already taken shape. He was unusually self-reliant, physically capable, and mentally unyielding. He carried a quiet intensity, a sense of distance from those around him. This separation was not arrogance. It was a survival response. He understood that attachment in a volatile world often led to loss. Instead, he anchored himself in discipline, observing the world as though he were already preparing for life as a Ronin. His first duel at the age of 13 became the ultimate expression of his early development. When a traveling samurai named Arima Kihei challenged the village, Musashi stepped forward, not out of reckless bravado, but from a sense of clarity formed through years of internal conditioning. He fought with a wooden staff, relying on instinct sharpened by observation and an acute understanding of timing. The duel ended with Kihei on the ground, defeated. For the villagers, it was shocking. For Musashi, it was confirmation. He discovered that combat was not chaos to him. It was a language he could read fluently. This moment marked the end of his childhood. He had crossed a threshold most samurai reached far later in life. The duel did not inflate his ego. Instead, it awakened a hunger to understand combat more deeply. Musashi realized that the world was filled with men who claimed mastery, yet very few understood the true nature of conflict, how fear dictated movement, how anticipation could outmatch strength, how strategy could silence aggression before a blade even touched the skin. His decision to leave home shortly after was not rebellion. It was transformation. Musashi stepped into the world as a wanderer, not because he sought glory, but because he knew that mastery required exposure to varied styles, different minds, unpredictable environments. In each new place, he observed how warriors trained, how people lived, how authority operated. He carried almost nothing materially, yet mentally he held a framework far beyond his years. What defined Musashi's early life was not a series of dramatic events, but the accumulation of psychological elements. Instability that cultivated independence, harsh training that forged resilience, solitude that formed introspection, and conflict that revealed his natural strategic mind. These foundations built a young man who would eventually transcend the role of samurai and become a symbol of self-determined mastery. By the time he took his first steps into adulthood, Musashi was already living by principles he could not yet articulate. Discipline above comfort, observation above assumption, adaptability above rigidity. And although the world viewed him as a solitary wanderer, he was, in truth, entering the first stages of a lifelong study. The study of himself, of humanity, and of the forces that shape conflict, growth, and purpose. Miyamoto Musashi's career unfolded as a relentless pursuit of mastery, marked by duels that tested the limits of human strategy and an evolving philosophy that would outlive every opponent he faced. After leaving home as a young teenager, Musashi stepped into a Japan still trembling from centuries of civil war. Samurai sought patrons, clans fought for dominance, and mastery of the sword meant survival. Yet Musashi never aligned himself with a single lord. He chose the harder path, life as a Ronin, because it granted him the freedom to study combat in its rawest form, unfiltered by politics or obligation. His early travels led him through provinces where martial schools flourished, each claiming superiority. Musashi challenged them, not for reputation, but for learning. His duels during these years were not displays of bravado. They were practical experiments. He analyzed opponents the way a mathematician studies patterns. He noticed how fear tightened shoulders, how pride made men predictable, how tradition could trap a swordsman into rigid habits. Musashi refused such rigidity, adapting on the spot, changing tempo, using terrain, and disrupting expectations. This adaptability soon became his signature advantage. One of the most defining episodes of his career occurred during his series of duels against the Yoshioka School in Kyoto, one of the most prestigious martial institutions of its time. Musashi's first victory against Seijuro Yoshioka destabilized the school's authority. His second duel, against Seijuro's brother, further cemented his reputation. By the time the school attempted to ambush him with dozens of fighters in a final confrontation, Musashi transformed the battle into a demonstration of controlled chaos, using movement, awareness, and psychological dominance to escape overwhelming odds. These encounters were not just triumphs of skill, they were proof of Musashi's strategic evolution. He had begun to understand that a fight was won before the first strike, through timing, mindset, and the manipulation of uncertainty. His most famous duel, however, came in 1612 against Sasaki Kojiro, a swordsman celebrated for his elegance and technical mastery. The setting was Ganryu Island, a narrow shoreline framed by crashing waves. Musashi arrived deliberately late, unsettling Kojiro's confidence. He carved a wooden sword from an oar during his journey, choosing reach and improvisation over tradition. When the duel began, the clash was brief but decisive. Musashi recognized a single opening and struck with precision. Kojiro fell, and with him fell the myth that beauty and form alone could conquer the unpredictable nature of real combat. Following this victory, Musashi's career entered a new phase. He no longer sought duels as tests of survival. He sought deeper understanding. He participated in military campaigns, including the Siege of Osaka, observing battlefield dynamics on a grand scale. These experiences reinforced his belief that combat was not merely physical. It was psychological, environmental, and spiritual. He began focusing on the inner dimensions of mastery: perception, timing, and mental stillness. As Musashi matured, he transitioned from warrior to teacher, though never in a conventional sense. He took on students selectively, guiding them not toward imitation, but toward self-reflection. He emphasized fluidity, adaptability, and breaking free from rigid forms. His creation of the Nitenichi Ryu style, which employed two swords simultaneously, was another expression of his belief that mastery required unconventional thinking. Dual wielding was not simply a technique, it was a mindset of versatility and balance. In the later years of his life, Musashi withdrew from public combat and retreated into deeper introspection. He settled in a cave called Regando, where he distilled a lifetime of experience into writing. His treatise, The Book of Five Rings, became his ultimate contribution, an exploration of strategy that transcended swordsmanship and spoke to the universal structure of conflict. Written with clarity and austerity, the work emphasized principles such as observing the void, aligning with timing, and understanding the opponent's mind. It remains one of the most influential texts on strategy, studied far beyond martial circles, from business leaders to philosophers. Musashi's career was not defined by the number of duels he won. Though history recalls more than 60, it was defined by the transformation of a fighter into a strategist into a thinker, and a thinker into a master of self. His achievements were not merely victories, but evolutions. Each step advanced him toward a mastery that transcended weapons and entered the realm of pure discipline and insight. By the end of his life, Musashi had become a figure who represented more than combat proficiency. He embodied the principle that mastery is a lifelong pursuit, forged through constant refinement, humility before learning, and the courage to reinvent oneself. His career remains a testament to the idea that true greatness lies not in dominance over others, but in the unending effort to surpass one's own former limits. Behind Miyamoto Musashi's legendary reputation as an undefeated swordsman existed a private life shaped by solitude, internal conflict, and the constant tension between violence and purpose. His personal world was far quieter than his public triumphs suggested. Musashi spent most of his life without a permanent home, moving from province to province, often sleeping outdoors and adopting the mindset of a wanderer whose true destination was inward. This self-imposed isolation was not born from arrogance, but from an understanding that attachment could cloud clarity. The path he chose demanded sacrifice, and one of the greatest sacrifices was stability. Relationships in Musashi's life were sparse and complex. Though historical accounts reference marriages or domestic periods, none took lasting hold. His life's rhythm, duels, travel, introspection, left little space for conventional companionship. Yet, he was not devoid of emotional depth. The few bonds he formed, particularly with younger students and adopted sons, revealed a side of him marked by responsibility and quiet protectiveness. He offered guidance with a calm firmness, teaching them not just technique but the resilience and self-discipline required to withstand life's unpredictability. Still, his mentorships never replaced the internal solitude that defined him. Musashi's greatest personal challenge lay in reconciling the violence required of his path with the wisdom he sought over time. In his early years, combat had been an avenue for growth and survival. But as he aged, he confronted a subtle yet powerful internal shift, the realization that constant fighting could no longer serve as the measure of mastery. This transition from external conquest to internal understanding became one of his life's most transformative arcs. He reflected deeply on questions of purpose, why one fights, what one seeks to understand through struggle, and how to live beyond the sword. This introspective phase was not without turmoil. Musashi wrestled with the fear that without combat, he might lose the identity he had forged through decades of discipline. The world he once navigated as a warrior was changing. Peace was slowly settling over Japan, reducing the necessity of the sword. He had to redefine purpose in this shifting landscape. This challenge forced him to evolve from a fighter into a thinker, from a strategist into a philosopher. In many ways, this internal challenge proved more formidable than any opponent he had ever faced. Even as he withdrew from dueling, Musashi faced physical decline. Years of travel, harsh environments, and battle injuries took a toll on his body. Yet aging sharpened his insight. During his final years at Raigando Cave, he confronted mortality with the same discipline he had brought to every duel. Instead of resisting decline, he observed it, studied it, and integrated it into his understanding of the human condition. The solitude of the cave was not a retreat from life, but a concentration of it, an environment where he could reflect without distraction, distilling a lifetime of learning into words. The Book of Five Rings emerged from this period of contemplation. It stands as a testament to the internal journey Musashi undertook. He wrote not to boast of victories, but to articulate principles that transcended technique. His personal struggles, loneliness, identity, mortality, shaped the clarity with which he expressed ideas such as observing the void, embracing timing, and understanding that mastery is as much about the mind as the sword. These insights reveal that Musashi's personal life was not separate from his achievements. It was the crucible that transformed skill into wisdom. In his final days, Musashi accepted the inevitability of his passing with calm detachment. Surrounded by students who saw him not merely as a warrior, but as a guide, he left the world as he lived, with discipline, awareness, and a quiet sense of purpose. His personal challenges had forged a man whose legacy extended far beyond his era, offering lessons on resilience, self-knowledge, and the lifelong pursuit of mastery. Conclusion: Miyamoto Musashi's life remains a study in transformation, of a restless boy into a formidable warrior, of that warrior into a strategist, and eventually of the strategist into a philosopher whose insights transcend time. His legacy is not preserved merely in the number of duels he won, or the legends surrounding his battles, but in the evolution of his character. Musashi demonstrated that true mastery is not about conquering others. It is about conquering oneself. His journey illustrates the discipline required to examine one's fears, the courage to abandon rigid identities, and the humility to continue learning, even at the peak of success. Across centuries, his teachings endure because they offer clarity in a world filled with distraction. Musashi's understanding of timing, perception, and adaptability remains relevant in fields far beyond martial arts. Leaders, thinkers, and practitioners across disciplines still draw from his principles, finding in them a blueprint for navigating conflict, whether external or internal, with precision and purpose. His legacy also prompts reflection on what it means to live intentionally. Musashi embraced solitude not as withdrawal, but as refinement. He treated every moment, whether in battle, travel, or contemplation, as an opportunity to strengthen awareness. Through this lens, his life becomes more than a historic narrative. It becomes a model for anyone seeking depth in a world that often favors speed over substance. Ultimately, the world remembers Musashi not because he was undefeated, but because he refused to stop evolving. His legacy challenges us to pursue mastery with the same unwavering commitment, sharp in focus, humble in learning, and resilient in spirit. His life stands as a reminder that the greatest victories occur not on the battlefield, but within the boundaries of one's own discipline and mind.